Well, good afternoon, everyone. As the attendees are starting to enter into the call, I just want to point out that you are on the call with the Insurance Department, the Pennsylvania Insurance Department, sponsored by the Pennsylvania Association of Mutual Insurance Companies and the Insurance Federation of Pennsylvania. Uh, just some housekeeping chores. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A function uh, found, I believe it's at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Send your question in there and you can send it in either anonymously or, with your name attached. Either way works. You could also use the chat feature, but we would recommend you use the Q&A to do that. One of the things we spoke about just before we went live is that we will be hosting this phone call at a minimum every other week um, for the foreseeable future. And then, however, because the upcoming one would be held on um, Memorial Day, Monday of Memorial Day, we're moving it to the following week, which would be June 1st. Now, with all of that said, if anything breaks or anything major happens, we will try to get a call uh, sooner than that, because that would be almost 3 weeks from now. Um, as usual, it's my pleasure to introduce the senior staff from the insurance department, headed by Chief of Staff Mike Humphreys. Mike is going to be the one sort of leading most of the call. Once again, if you have any questions, use the Q&A feature. And with that, Mike, I'll just turn it right over to you.
Sure. Thanks, Ron. Appreciate it, guys. Ron and Sam for putting this together. We are happy to join you again. Missed you last week, but as we moved into this every other week schedule, look forward to continuing to have these conversations. The commissioners not able to join us today. As many of you may have seen, we issued a press release earlier this morning that has garnered quite a bit of attention. So she is on a number of interviews right now related to that press release. And essentially what we did in the press release was simply caution businesses that are defying the governor's order and the secretary's business closure order, to suggest to them that many insurance policies contain provisions that will exclude coverage for businesses or individuals engaging in illegal acts or conducts. And these may apply to property coverage or liability coverage. So the intent was to make business owners, individuals, and others simply aware that those issues could possibly exist in their insurance policies, so that people were aware when they were making decisions and looking to the state as to how they open up. We recognize, of course, that the language in every policy is different. The circumstances surrounding the business and the actions of those that may be opening up are going to be different. So it was really just an encouragement for everyone to be aware of the issues, an encouragement to continue to follow the orders, and raising the flag that there could be insurance complications or issues that would arise should one decide to defy the governor's order.
And Mike, this is Ron. Where can our participants get a copy of the press release?
The press release should be on our website. I will try, Ron, when I get a minute, to email it to, or not email it, I'll post it in the text box over on the right when I get a chance to stop talking. So
okay, thank you.
I could send it to everyone else.
Okay.
The next issue that we wanted to talk about just generally is, and this isn't final yet, so just putting it on your radar is something that may become final in the near future, as we're trying to work on providing guidance, particularly to agents and agencies on what operations look like in a yellow phase. And I think the most important piece to remember for those with businesses in yellow is that telework is required to continue to the extent feasible. So yellow doesn't necessarily mean open up business as usual, but rather continue to telework to the extent possible. It may open up additional opportunities that when you have clients come in and you're adequately mitigating, that type of interaction is permissible. And the one other point that I would highlight too is that unsolicited in-person sales will continue to be prohibited as there's non-consent on the second side of that transaction. I would turn it over to Chris to see if he had any additional comments that he wanted to make in terms of providing.
No, I don't have, I think Mike's covered it all. With this was the result of, as soon as the announcement that some counties were going to yellow a week or two ago, we started getting questions from agencies and agents right away. So the guidance or the notice should address those. But I think Mike has covered the different points that the notice should basically go through.
Great, thanks, Chris. And we will hope to get that out as soon as we can, but obviously are still working on it here. The next issue that we wanted to highlight, because we do know that there's a number of life carriers that participate on these calls, is that like we have done on the PC side, we issued guidance Friday morning on how to file the various payback programs that have been announced recently. We've had some inquiries from dental companies, some suggestions from consumers that dental companies, vision plans should be giving similar payback programs that we're seeing on kind of the commercial auto or the personal auto side. So we've updated that guidance, posted that through SURF to make it available to all your teams. And then also this morning, forwarded around some guidance issued at the end of last week by the Department of Health on kind of restarting dental and healthcare practices and what they need to do in order to open up and provide additional service. Shannon, is there anything that you could provide in terms of the guidance on the payback programs?
Yeah, I think the big takeaway that we have is that we really believe a filing is going to be necessary. The filing really enables us to review the premium credit or rate reductions and ensuring that it's not unfairly discriminatory or results in an inadequate rate, and to confirm that it also complies with our anti-rebating laws. So similar to the guidance that we gave with the auto insurance premium relief program submissions, it's the same exact guidance we want for the health side. So this is really going out to the health insurance, which includes major medical, dental only, and vision only products. So that's really what we're looking for. If you guys have any questions on that, please feel free to reach out.
And Shannon, while we're on it, why don't you move into a quick update on filings made through?
Yeah, absolutely. So, back in 2013, we made all the life, accident, and health filings, or around that time period. It wasn't all at the same time, but those products have all been made. The filings need to come through SURF, and it's been made mandatory there. So, in light of all that we're dealing with, getting paper filings right now that are going into the office where all our staff is all working and teleworking, it really makes a logical kind of next step for us to move to all making mandatory SURF for all PNC filings as well. Knowing that the insurers are going to need some time to react to that, we decided to make the effective date August 1st. And that's when we're going to no longer accept paper filings for all the property and casualty forms, rates, rules, and rate and rule, and statistical filings. So hopefully it gives them a little bit of time to react, to get the account set up, get the training, whatever they need for that. But after the August 1st timeframe, if you're still seeking to submit something in paper filing, you're going to have to contact the department, talk through what exceptional circumstances are necessitating a paper filing. So I think that's really what we're looking to do. And again, it's just another step in the direction of keeping things moving and flowing in a nice manner during this time, especially while we're all teleworking, and with an unknown time period when things could move, from all the different phases. That's all I have there.
Thank you, Shannon. Chris, wanted to turn to you to provide an update on appointment fees.
So right now, we're having some difficulty with some companies that don't have the ability to get in and cut checks to pay for their appointment fees. We know that there are at least $11 million in appointment fees out there that have yet to be paid for companies that have more than $100,000 that they owe. And there is an electronic process that the state has developed for companies that have $100,000 or more in billable appointment fees owed to the state. So what we're going to try to do is do some outreach to those companies to give them the information they need so that they can come in and have those appointment fees paid electronically, which would be a first time for us because typically we bill by paper and they pay by paper. So a little bit different process. So if in anticipation of that, if you're a company that has yet to pay your appointment bill and you know that you owe more than $100,000, you can do outreach to me, or you can send me an email, cmonahan@pa.gov, and we can try to get you the best information you can so that you can pay your bill electronically.
Very good. Thanks, Chris. The last issue that I wanted to update before we turn it to questions, so I'll encourage those questions now. So you have a couple minutes to formulate those questions. We only have 2 that are currently pending. And thank you all for sharing the press release. I see that that is posted. But the NAIC business interruption data call. The NAIC had heard from a trade asking for some additional time. The data call was supposed to go out last Friday, the 8th, with a turnaround time of May 22nd. So it would have been a 2-week turnaround. It did not go out on Friday as regulators continued to kind of review the schedule for issuing that data call. You should begin to get it though today. Because it will go out today, and we have gone ahead and decided to extend the filing date to June 1 for the first filing. So it'll provide an additional week to meet that initial business interruption deadline. So just wanted to let you all know that's of course available on the NAIC site today, but they'll be reaching out, or it'll be sent to your teams and start going out later today if it hasn't already gone out. So that's all we have in terms of prepared remarks. And I guess that would mean that it's time to turn over to the questions. So we have 2 questions so far. Oh, and they're doozies. So the first one, we don't have an exclusion for businesses that open despite the governor's order. Why would the governor and insurance departments suggest we do? The suggestion again was that there may be challenges with insurance policies, particularly on the liability side, particularly because policies often do include provisions that exclude coverage for illegal activity. So that's where that derives from. And also there's typically exclusion for dishonest acts. So our message to the businesses was that there may be situations where something like that would arise. It wasn't a blanket statement that in all cases policies will have exclusions that should you decide to go ahead and violate the governor's order, that there won't be implications on the backside, but it was intended to let them know that there may be challenges should you be facing a liability suit or have a claim filed against your policy for opening up when the governor has ordered that businesses be shut down. Does the DOI support the NAIC position on business interruption by creating a federal program instead of the state-by-state legislative proposals? This is something that the NAIC continues to work on. We're in constant communication with members of Congress on what a response may look like. Obviously, through the NAIC, we're viewed in Washington as the experts on insurance matters. So to the extent that they start developing programs that would be like TRIA or otherwise make changes to insurance on a proactive basis, they seek positions from the NAIC, and then NAIC, when it gets congressional matters or requests from members of Congress, brings that back to the regulators that ultimately make determinations. It would go to the NAIC's Government Relations Leadership Committee, GERLIC, before any position statements would be provided to the Congress. So that is something that as ideas continue to be introduced or discussed around Capitol Hill, that we will continue to participate. The next question is, will an insurer which writes only personal lines policies be required to respond to the NAIC data call? I am not 100% sure about that. I don't know either if Shannon or Chris know the answer to that, and I can't pull up their page fast enough to answer that for you. So does anyone else on our side know that answer?
This is Chris. I'm not sure exactly, but I know with other data calls through the NAIC, the way that works is companies are identified typically based off the types and lines of coverage that they're licensed to write. If you can get into more detail, it also pulls up premium written, which is very specific, and then you can target exactly who you want to look at. So it depends on how the NAIC has drawn the targets in this instance. If it's based on licensing type and a company has the authority to write it, even if they're not writing it, they could receive the data call.
Thanks, Chris. The next one, Joe DeMemo, is going to be for you. Since the PID has requested all filings be electronic and has deferred notary requirements for documents until a time when notary services can be provided, will the PID accept e-signature on documents during this period using services such as DocuSign or HelloSign, or does the PID require scanned copies of wet signatures? Specifically, I'm asking about the quarterly statements due May 15th.
Now, we had suggested before that we would accept electronic filings, including signatures, and that we would catch up later. Eventually, we're going to catch up, and we're going to have the notary wherever the notary requirements have to be met, and that wet signatures are present on the financial statements that are filed.
Thanks, Joe. Next question. Does the department plan to return or partial to offices when Harrisburg is in the yellow zone? PID, like the other agencies in Harrisburg, is continuing to work on what our reopening plan would be. And like other businesses across the state, we would similarly look at teleworking first. Most of the deputies on the call have been working with their teams, and it's been very successful working remotely from the office. And we are planning to continue to be working remotely for a period of time. So as conditions change, the state and through our Office of Administration will continue to put out guidance to the departments on what a reopening plan looks like for us. But to the extent that we can, I think there will be an extended period of time. Does anyone else on our team have anything to add to that and kind of how you've been teleworking? It's okay. I'll move on. Has the NAIC or has the DOI authorized the NAIC data call? Yes, we sent them a letter agreeing to the terms that they put into the MOU that allows Pennsylvania to be a participant and have the NAIC reach out and do that data call on our behalf, working with the department. Next question. Hey, sorry, everybody. I had a 4-year-old pop in for a minute. Next question is, if an insurer denies a claim from a business that is operating outside the governor's allowance, will the PA Insurance Department affirm the denial and help defend it against bad faith allegations that could follow? Again, I think the consistent theme here with what I'm going to tell you is that it's going to be looked at on a case-by-case basis, as there are differences in the situations that we will see, as well as the policy language that's specific to those circumstances. If the local DA is not prosecuting violations of the governor's order, is a violation of the governor's order still considered to be an illegal act as referenced in your 511 warning? There is a consistent theme here. This is something that, again, will be a kind of a case-by-case basis. I think that as we look at it, there are other provisions that are even outside of illegal activity in the policy, as I mentioned, kind of dishonest actions. In other language that we've seen, but not being a lawyer myself, I'm not going to be able to speak to the definition of illegal. I will defer to Amy or Jody if there's any additional information we can provide here.
Yeah, this is Jody. I think that, in the context of the last question that was asked, it really would depend on, what the court who was reviewing that claim would determine. So, I mean, that wouldn't necessarily be something that the insurance department would be making a determination on. That's more of a determination for the court, as well as the burden of proof in, whatever type of action that is.
Thanks, Jody. Next question. Has the department, when considering an elimination of the burden of proof for plaintiffs filing work comp claims, recognized the potential pitfalls resulting from all that which remains unknown relative to permanency of virus?
I think that actually may be a question for the Department of Labor and Industry.
Yeah, I was just trying to unwind it, but thanks, Jody. Would employees working for businesses that open in violation of the governor's order be in jeopardy of not being covered by workers' compensation insurance? Again, I think we're going to fall into the same refrain that we've talked about, and that being kind of policy by policy, situation by situation basis.
And just to add to that, I think that, everyone's raising a lot of really good questions here. And, we really are in uncharted waters on this. And I think that that's sort of why, the insurance department wanted to issue the press release today, just to sort of get everybody thinking about, the possible and potential issues that could be raised out there, when you're when an employer or when an individual is dealing with, with a closure order.
Thanks, Jody. How is the reopening, going to affect the non-payment cancellations? Will companies have to write off premiums that are uncollectible, or will we be able to cancel the policy back to the original non-payment cancellation date will filings be required if premiums are written off? Well, I think in many cases, at least some cases, some of the filings being made with Shannon today speak to kind of when and how the paybacks will be provided, whether they're retrospective, whether they're prospective for the next 2 months. As you all know, and I think we appreciate through kind of being on these calls, the department went at providing guidance from a, instead of doing a one-size-fits-all approach, we have made recommendations and encouraged your flexibility, but really wanted to stop short on telling you how you needed to provide paybacks to consumers, or how you would, what date specific we would put as an end date to how flexible you're being in terms of premium payment programs. Shannon, is there anything that you wanted to add to that, or I guess even Joe potentially, if there's an uncollectible premium in the future? Shannon, I'll turn to you.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot I can really add to that one, and we can definitely look more into it. Most of the premium relief efforts have come in with a percentage, assuming, of course, that the risk has been reduced, so therefore the premiums are being reduced. This is a little bit of a different question, and again, as Mike had said, it's very operationalized, but we haven't provided any guidance on this yet, so we can take it back from a filing perspective.
Okay, we're just gonna stick to this press release, apparently. Actually, here's another question. With the extended closure of PennDOT and related agencies that generally provide reports to insurers for various business reasons, it is likely there will be significant backlog of work. Does the department know of any plan at PennDOT to hire additional staff or make other arrangements so that upon reopening, it won't have insurers waiting for months for their respected reports? I don't, and that's an interesting and constructive question. I very much appreciate it. If there are specific reports and dependencies that you have on other departments in Pennsylvania, it would be helpful to us if you could get those questions to us either directly, or if you'd want to remain anonymous, particularly go through Ron or Sam, and we can try to work with them to get answers to the questions that you're looking for. I think we've done that in a few cases already, so would be happy to make sure that we're able to flag issues like these for our department colleagues, and then maybe get back to you all or see how we can work together on a future call along those same lines. And I think the last two questions again, let's see, this one, does the PID believe an insurer can cancel a policy if an insured opens up in violation of the governor's executive order? Again, we're not, and the other question is similar in that it speaks again about specific language in press release. We have not issued a blanket statement in terms of what is going to be applicable throughout all of the policies that have been issued. We have worked with the governor's office and have the support of the governor's office in kind of issuing our press release that sought to raise the potential issue that there could be policy concerns related to opening up in defiance of the governor's order. So I think I appreciate the questions, but I'm not going to be able to tell you if all policies of a particular type include the exact same language. So it's something that, like you, we're going to have to look at as on a case-by-case basis. You all know we're a complaint-driven organization. So as we get complaints, we will have to look at the foundations of the complaint, including the underlying policy, to help advise our next steps in that complaint reconciliation process. That I am not seeing any questions in the chat forum, and I don't see any other question. There's one. Does the PID have a position on granting liability protections to employers who open? Several states have introduced legislation on this topic. As with any legislative question, I think the devil is in the details. So we would want to see what such legislation would look like before weighing in one way or the other. I know you've seen legislation granting liability on the medical professional side. So we would be interested in reviewing whatever legislation pertains to the business of insurance. It looks like there is one more question from a panelist that I think Ron is trying to handle in our chat function. So I will hold for a moment. If Ron sent you the question directly, if you want to respond or type the question in the question and answer box, we'll give you another minute to submit, and we'll see if anything else comes in between now and then.
Okay, Mike, while we're doing that, I just asked the person how we can help them. They had raised their hand.
Okay.
So I don't know the answer either at this point. Once again, I want to say thank you so much for taking time out of your schedules to help as best you can clarify what's going on. I know the press release was just issued today, so it's probably going to garner a lot of thought and questions over the course of the next couple of days.
Yeah, hey, Ron.
Yes.
If I can, Michael.
Yeah, I was going to hand it over to you.
I think, Michael, on the press release, the department's press release, which was from this morning, so there may be some concerns. I think some of the confusion is that the governor's press release was a little more broad and a lot more definitive in saying that businesses in counties that don't abide by the law will no longer be eligible for business liability insurance and the protections it provides. And again, I'm not sure that we necessarily object, but that's just not necessarily the way, courts with exclusions and the way policies are written. And I know it's generated, certainly on our end, a lot of legislative interest. And I don't know that it's so much what your release was, which was, people ought to look and you never know, so much as it was a much more definitive statement out of the governor's office. And that may be where the rub is, certainly on the legislative side.
Sure. No, I can appreciate that. Obviously, we work with the governor's office on any press release that comes out of the department. And there's a number of folks that any type statements bounce off of. So, I mean, we had the approval to issue the language that was provided in our press release and that was issued and that is circulated.
Yeah, no, I'm just, but if you're in regular contact with them, that seems to be where some of the confusion is.
Sure, appreciate it.
Sam, you want to give any closing remarks, and then we can.
No, I mean, challenging times, obviously, for everybody across the board, and we'll see where we can go.
Okay. With that said, I want to say thank you to everybody. Our next broadcast will be June 1st, same time, 3 p.m. in the afternoon. So look for that. Sam Marshall with the Insurance Federation will be sending out invites to his members, and we'll do the same thing at PAMIC. I just want to say thank you. Be safe out there, and we just appreciate everything you're doing.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
See you all.